Hello, my name is Audrey and Nishi from Nishimai. Welcome to our kimono tying tutorial where we will show you how to properly tie a yukata. And we will also hear from Blythe Nishi about her experiences making her own kimono. I would also like to point out that this is a beginner's guide for kimono tying and will be focused on the tying of yukata, also known as summer kimono. We are not experts in kimono tying, but we'll do our best to show you the proper steps based on what we've been taught. First, we will show you some basic supplies that you'll need to dress yourself in a yukata. We have first 3 himos or ties, which are extremely important to have, and you will later see why. White tabi are nice to have, but if it is summertime, they aren't really essential. Next, we have a white v-neck t-shirt with a fairly deep cut collar line at the back of the neck, which is also very important. If you don't have this type of t-shirt and are in a pinch, a lower cut tank top that also exposes the nape of your neck works as well. A third option to use is called a hada juban, which looks like this. These are more commonly used in the fall or winter time. We will not be using a hada juban in this tutorial. Next, we have our obi ita and obi. And lastly, our lovely kimono. I would like to mention 2 other very useful items. The first is a datejime. A datejime is essentially a stretchy Velcro band that goes around your waist to help hold everything in place. We forgot ours, unfortunately, sumimasen, but I will be sure to mention at what point during the tutorial this item would be useful. The second thing I forgot is the zori or sandals. If you're like me and Japanese zori hurt your feet tremendously, I recommend some nice looking flip-flops or sandals. Alright, now we are ready to get started. We can see Blythe also has on some black tights on her legs, but a white skirt or slip would do fine as well, especially during the summer when it's extremely hot. So we're going to put both arms in, and as you can see, I'm pulling back the collar of the kimono to make sure there are a few inches of space between the back of Blythe's neck and the kimono eri or collar. Here I look directly between Blythe's feet to find the middle seam of the kimono and make sure that that seam is directly in between her feet. It is also important to visualize the middle seam of the kimono at Blythe's back and making sure that the seam is straight, both in the middle of Blythe's back and in the middle between her legs. At this point, Blythe is actually holding the sides of the kimono up at roughly the correct height vertically and the correct position horizontally while I make further adjustments. The next step is to cross the left edge of the kimono over the right. And it is Blythe's left, not mine, that is important because kimonos are only wrapped right over left when dressing the dead for burial. And Blythe is not dead, she is still very much alive. As you can see at this step, I also make sure the front part of the kimono by Blythe's feet is also level horizontally and at the correct height. This first tie will make everything neat and pretty below the level of the tie, but as you can see, we will have excess fabric above the tie, which is what we want. Here, I also adjust the fabric in the back, so the fabric around the tie doesn't appear scrunched. I also lightly tug excess fabric so it is above the tie, just as I did for the front of the kimono. And once again, you see I'm keeping an eye on the collar of her kimono because that likes to shift sometimes. Now you're going to pull both ends of the tie so that it's pretty snug. You don't want to hurt the person. You want it to hold pretty firmly. The type of knot I do is first a basic half knot And then act like you're going to make a shoelace bow, but instead of making it 2 loops of a bow, make only 1 loop. Then, as you can see, any excess ribbon I tuck in under the tie so that it's not dangling out. This next part is a little hard to see, but I reach my hand into the slit that's kind of where Blythe's left armpit is, and I reach in there to grab the lower part of her right eddy. And what I'm doing is straightening out the fabric, getting it wrinkle-free, and making that V shape that we want around the chest area. At this point now, I have flattened the excess fabric that was above the first tie and draped it over the first tie. That's why if you look at Blythe's waist right now, you don't actually see the first tie because it's evenly hidden by the excess fabric that has been flattened down. Now, to hold this nice new layer in place, we're going to tie number 2. Once again, I grab the tie at its midpoint and loop it around. In the beginning, I have to tie the tie loosely because I know I will have to fix the wrinkles in the back. The specific act I'm doing in the back is called pleating. By each of her shoulders, I fold the excess fabric inward as if I'm making a shallow pocket. And I do that by both the left and right shoulders. The end result is that the back is able to look less wrinkly. And once again, we're going to tighten the knot firmly and tuck any excess ribbon under the tie. At this point, if we had a dattejime, the Velcro cincher, we would wrap it snugly around her waist to secure the things even more. Next, we're going to tie the obi. So Blythe is going to have to hold one end of the obi over her right shoulder. The rest I will wrap around her waist, making sure it's wrapping over the ties. I loop around her waist twice, and that is the common number of times, but it can only be sometimes 1 time or wrap around 3 times, depending on how thin the person is or how long the obi is. And next comes the fun part. So I'm going to have to give one big quick tug to make sure the obi is tight. You will want to warn the person you're dressing ahead of time to brace themselves and if needed, hold on to something. Next, I have Blythe release her end of the obi that she was holding on to, so I can use both ends of the obi to tie a simple half knot. I pull firmly in both directions to make it tight and quickly tilt the ends of the obi up 90 degrees. I start by grabbing it at the very end and measuring her waist size, as you can see me holding up the end of the obi to her back. Once I have the desired length of the bow, I start folding that same length over and over. At this point, I position the nice looking or flat side of the bow towards me and fold it in half in the very middle. Then fold each of those halves in half as well, which ends up being like an accordion fold. Then, with my left hand, I hang on to my folded bow firmly. And with my right hand, I grab the shorter end of the bow from Blythe, making sure it's still folded in half. And I loop the shorter half of the obi directly under my bow. I do this once, and then a second time, pushing it under and tugging it up each time. Then I take the end of the obi and pull it straight up to ensure it's nice and tight. Then I shove the end of the obi between Blythe's back and the first layer of the obi that is wrapped around her waist. Be careful during this part to not disturb the ties that we tied earlier. The end of the obi should pop out beneath the first layer of the obi. At this point, I fold that little piece horizontally and upward. In this case, I use a rolled up tie and stick it right under the middle of the bow to prop it up. I also shape the edges of the bow, curving them to give it a poofy, nice bow look. At the end, we sneak in the obi ita between the two layers of the obi and make sure the ita can't be seen poking out from under the obi. If you're doing a obi where it just goes around the waist once, then you will consider perhaps putting in the ita earlier to make it easier. But if you have a 2-layer obi, then putting the ita in at the end is fine. And now we have our finished look.
Hello everyone, this is the Q&A portion where I, Blythe Nishi, will be interviewing my sister Audry Nishi, both of us of which are in Nishimai, about some of the background that we had before this video in order to learn how exactly to get into a yukata or a kimono just day to day, because obviously we didn't just learn this overnight, neither will you. It's a really difficult process. So just a few questions to ask my sister. So how did you learn how to tie a kimono?
So how I learned to tie kimono was from my Minyo Japanese folk dance instructor, Toshiya Kawamura, and also from other members of the dance group. And it didn't happen overnight, I can tell you that for sure, and you know that. I think in the beginnings of my experiences with kimonos would be at obons. My mom would always tell me, go find the old ladies, the obachans who can help tie you, because my mom was Mexican and she still is Mexican, and she doesn't know how to tie us up in kimonos or any of that, but we still wanted to be a part of the obon, and we had these kimonos, we just didn't know how to put them on. So in the beginnings, we would always go reach out to get help, because it's a very complicated process, as you just saw, and takes a lot of time and know-how. And so in the beginning, we really didn't know how, but as we progressed in the Minyo group, they told us, you will have to start learning how to do this yourself. That's part of the process. And so in the beginning, we knew a little bit of how to put the ties on, and get everything to look lined up. And then in the beginning, we also wouldn't be able to tie the obis, because that's a little bit more of a difficult aspect. But it took me about 10 years to become fully able to get from 0 to here. So that was kind of my journey, and along the way I've had to seek out a lot of help, find out exactly the nuances of how to make this straight, how to make the back not look crunched, how to make sure that your kimono flap doesn't open. There's a lot of nuances to that, and I think I was able to practice a lot because in the Minyo group for every performance, we need to put these on. And so if you're a beginner and you're frustrated with kimono tying, I can tell you that that's totally normal. There's a large learning curve, and you're only going to get better if you practice. So always practice. Practice makes perfect, and you're going to learn. And soon it'll be cemented in your mind. Just go to more obons, more opportunities to tie kimonos. I know you have an experience with obon, right?
Yeah, so I think for me, I actually met most of the people that kind of asked me to make this video through San Jose Obon, because I remember, like, that was the first time where I had to do it very casually, like, I would just have girls coming up to me being like, I have a yukata and I have an obi, help me. And I'm like, so you
They didn't have ties.
They didn't have ties, they didn't have obita, they didn't have eri, they didn't have zori, they just wore Vans and a yukata and an obi, and you just need to make do with it.
In that scenario, you kind of became the obachan,
yeah.
And they were the little ones needing help. So
yeah.
That's kind of interesting.
So I think that that's a situation where a lot of girls, and also men as well, I mean, I know for us, we're still not masters, we're still learning. I mean, I still have yet to learn more about how to do men's kimono, men's yukata. I mean, that's how you tie obi for that's different. Also, how you do obi for older women, younger women, if you're married or not, just all of that. There's also ones that are more contemporary and it looks more extravagant, a little bit bigger bows. Maybe not a bow.
There's a lot more embellishments you can do, and right now we kind of mastered the basics, but there's a lot more adornments you can do.
Yeah, and then also, like, I mean, for on the casual level, we're pretty good at it for beginner level, but you know, with our Mino group, we still sometimes get critiques from our sensei, which is totally fine. That helps us. Like, for me, when I was younger, I used to joke around about we need Toshi approval before we got on stage. So
final approval.
Yeah.
And many times she would actually tell us this is okay, but it doesn't work, and so she would have to reopen it and then re-tie it. Yeah. So that's another experience you'll have, is you might be thinking it looks right, but then you need feedback, like, okay, is it wrong because you're not going to be able to lift your arm? Is it wrong because you're just straight up you can't breathe, or your V-neck is flopping open? There's all so many things that it's not just how it looks, but also the functionality. Can you move? Can you sit down? Is another whole thing.
Yeah, so I mean, I guess in essence for that question, it was like we learned through a lot of the older folks through our Mino group. And then we're still learning, but they're still there, and we're still grateful that they're there to help us. And we're here to help you in case you need anything. So going on to the second question, why is knowing how to tie a kimono important to you specifically?
It's very important to me because I'm thinking future, long term. When I have descendants, I would want to be able to dress them up in kimonos, take them with me to the obon, and part of the culture, keeping the culture alive and preserving your heritage is being able to do this. Dress yourself up in a kimono. It makes me feel that I'm preserving my history and passing it down. Our grandfather, Alice Nishi, always told my Hispanic mother, Esperanza, don't let the culture die. She even tells us that to this day, that he said those words. And so that kind of instills in me the desire to keep the traditions going, don't let it die. And we have these beautiful kimonos, so it would be great if we could still wear them. I know it's not always the easiest, like Blythe said, for our type of our body types. You know, sometimes these kimonos don't fit, and in actuality, this kimono doesn't even fit me. If you look, the length is supposed to stop at my wrist, and it does not. So that's another thing for you people trying to tie yourselves up. Make sure your kimono is the right size. And but where I was going with that is Blythe being able to make kimonos is very great because We might not all be able to slim down to the right size for these kimonos, so if you can make your own, then you can still preserve the tradition. You can still wear them because you can tailor them to your size and not look not look a little out of sorts because you're not wearing the right size.
Yeah, I definitely feel like for us, we feel like we always need to know, but like, for others, you think like, oh, well, I only wear it once a year. What's the point in learning? And it's like, I think it's always that thing once a year, but also like, there are other situations where you can wear it, but also it's something important because, once that kind of dies out, then next thing you know, a lot of these fabrics will be, being tailored for other things. And I think it's great if you still want to be able to wear these things to at least kind of know the basics. I mean, you don't need to go to a kimono school in Kyoto to learn everything, but if you can at least learn how to put on a yukata, then I think that's a great way to also connect your heritage with your future loved ones. And so, hopefully this answered a few questions. If you have any other questions for us, feel free to contact us via Nishimai on Instagram and Facebook, and I mean, my sisters and I are also available on a bunch of other platforms online, so we're always out there. Or you might see us in Obon, Northern California, from a drop by, might be there. Please give us time if you want us to dress you.
Thank you for watching our video. And if you ever want us to dress you, just bring a tie.
Yeah, it'd be great if you see someone or someone that can dress you, like at least try and bring some of the stuff that even if you don't know what it is, if you think it can help, bring it, that's fine. We can figure it out and be like,
we'll tell you what it is at least, and then next time you'll know what it is.
We'll figure out, like, oh, this is where this can go, and everything kind of has a use. So thanks again, and I hope you enjoyed this Q&A session. Hello everyone, thank you again for watching our Yukata and Obi tying tutorial. That was my sister and I, Audrey and Nishi. We are 2 out of the 3 of Nishimai, a Japanese minyo ensemble that includes my other sister, Darcy Nishi. She plays shamisen. And so, just a little background about our group. We were originally taught by Toshie Kawamura sensei out in Sacramento with the Sakura Minyo Dokokai, which is another Japanese folk dance group based in Sacramento. And so we learned a lot from that group, as well as other Japanese individuals in Sacramento and other Japanese American individuals in Sacramento. And so this portion of the video is going to be me talking about the kimono and matching face mask I made during quarantine. It was a pretty big project that I had in mind for quite a while, and so this is just me going to be talking about the makings of it and why I made it and what's the meaning behind all this. So a few things. Way back when, before college, before high school, I think I saw this in middle school or elementary school. There's a woman that I think she's the only one in Sacramento and I think almost most of Northern California that makes specifically tailored kimono for people. And so my mom always had to go to her in order for my sisters and I to get kimono that would actually fit us for some of our buyo performances, which is Japanese classical dance. And so she was this little old lady, I think she was in like her 70s or something at the time, and so she was tailoring these beautiful garments for my sisters and I, but it costed a lot of money, and our fabric, every time she was like super picky about it, because she was like, this is not the fabric I want, and it's like, well, sorry, we can't afford silk. Like, it's kind of hard to get that stuff. So unless you go to Japan. So over time, I kind of realized, like, man, I kind of wish I could make my own kimono, but unfortunately, we kind of lost touch with Morishige-san, and so we sometimes keep in touch with the family, but as to how Morishige-san is doing, we don't know. And so making kimono in the U.S. is not very common. I mean, a lot of people I think nowadays are kind of making hoppy coats and such, but not necessarily kimonos, just because it's so much work and you have to. Not many people know how to wear it in the first place. So for me, I learned how to make the kimono, well, yukata, from a YouTube tutorial actually, from a YouTuber named Made by Aya. She has a YouTube channel and an Instagram, and so on her YouTube channel, she makes a bunch of other stuff too. I think she teaches you how to make howdy jacket as well. But I followed her yukata tutorial, and so it's pretty simple, and so I made some tweaks to it just because some of the measurements weren't quite my measurements, because I think she's a slightly different size than me. I also had to kind of get used to using centimeters, not inches, so that was a little funky, but otherwise it was a great tutorial, considering the only other time I've made kind of something like that is a variation of that with my Sacramento Mino teacher, where she makes a kind of a modified kimono, but it's not quite the same as like a full kimono. So, and then also, just as a background for where I got this material, I got the fabric from Joann's. This is actually a design from Japan, and then they allowed it to be printed in the US by Joann's Fabric. And then that's just black panels for the sleeves that I had to use because I ran out of this wonderful fabric from Joann's. But otherwise, and then because I made this during quarantine, I had a matching face mask that I made with the excess fabric because I had been making, donating masks for Sew Masks for SF, which is like a small nonprofit in San Francisco that donates masks for essential workers. Unfortunately, these are not N95 masks, but they do feel pretty comfortable. And I made a few for my sisters and I, but yeah, so these two things kind of go hand in hand. And yeah, I really enjoyed making this. It was really painful because it was my first time making one, and so it took me about 2 or 3 months. When in reality, it probably could have gone faster, but I was really struggling with figuring out the measurements and such. But I really enjoyed it just because it kind of made me feel really fulfilled in finally making a garment that I could fit and wear for myself. And now I know how to make, I can hopefully, create other designs with this template and make kimono for others, hopefully. I really want to try and start making kimonos for others like my sisters and such. So, yeah, I just think it's really important to continue making these garments and knowing just how to sew stuff like this, just because in order to get it from Japan, it's really pricey. Also, it's not common to make it in these sizes. And so I'm hopefully, I'll continue making these garments, and I hope that this sort of practice will continue on into the future. And I think it's really important because this is a part of my sisters and I heritage, as well as others in the community that enjoy wearing kimono, not just because they think it's fashionable, but also because it brings them back memories. It reminds them of, their ancestors and times before them, that, these garments really mean a lot to people, especially the Nikkei community. And so it's not just, you don't want to culturally appropriate this stuff. This is something that is a part of our culture, and I think a lot of people enjoy wearing this because it means more than just fashion. It's like what you wear when you do Japanese classical dance, when you do Japanese folk dance and such. And so just to add on to what I said before, this is kind of a niche skill to learn in the first place. I think nowadays a lot of people, first off, younger people don't really know how to sew. It's really expensive to come across a sewing machine. The materials, there's not many fabric stores around in the US anymore. Also, to come across these kinds of fabrics, I mean, we're lucky enough that Joann's was able to print this kind of fabric in the US. And so just kind of know that not everyone needs to learn how to make a kimono, but I do think that, for individuals that want to keep, at least Nikkei, that want to keep, wearing kimono and going to obon and bazaar and other events throughout the year. If you want to wear a kimono, then you gotta learn how to wear it, and you gotta learn what gets put into these garments. I mean, it's not easy to make these. I mean, it's really hard to make them in bulk. I mean, because once again, everyone's so many different sizes, and so. But I think in general, if you're someone that is has some great memories tied to this clothing, and you think that you want to continue wearing it, and you want to get more invested into learning what exactly goes behind this fabric, then I would highly suggest, kind of looking more into how to wear this, and also like the industry, well, not industry, but like, the process behind these pieces of clothing, because it's kind of amazing actually when you kind of start to realize like, wow, this is like hard stuff to make, and then also there's so many other little accessories you need to have in order to properly wear kimono. So I think that is everything that I wanted to say. I kind of rambled a lot, but I had some pretty good points. So first off, thank you so much to the JAMP Virtual Pilgrimages Committee for inviting my sisters and I to this wonderful virtual pilgrimage. I think it's a great way to try and figure out what to do with this whole COVID-19 situation. We can't go to pilgrimages anymore, but we've got this. We've got a lot of other stuff we could be learning while we're in quarantine, and hopefully this is still somewhat interesting to you guys. Also just kind of a subtle plug for some other stuff that we do. So if you want to look at some other art projects that I do, as well as hopefully future kimono projects that I do, as well as more pictures of what this looks like when it's on me, you can follow my Instagram page at Cyankiku, Cyankiku. It's on Instagram. I don't have a Twitter, I don't have a Facebook, but I have an Instagram, so if you want to follow me there, that would be great. Also, my sisters and I have an Instagram and a Facebook page for Nishimai. I think on Instagram it's Nishimai916, so we'll be posting some of our future performances there, as other announcements that we have, and also a huge thank you to my sisters for helping me with this video, putting me in a kimono, tying me up, helping put this backdrop together, filming this. So it's been quite a bit, but it has been a great experience, and so thank you all so much for joining us for this video, and I hope you enjoy the rest of the virtual pilgrimage in the coming weeks.